No worries at all. I trust Teresa's always on it with the recording. So I usually just fire straight in. But no, I was just saying I'm joining from an organization called Lightful, which we'll tell you more about shortly. But yeah, just again to say a huge thank you for joining us. A couple of housekeeping bits before we start. As we just said, we're recording the webinar, so we'll make sure you get a link to the recording so you can review it after, along with a link to the slides that we go through today as well. And please be interactive. We love it when we host webinars if you're as interactive as possible. So as you've all been doing already, pop your name in the chat, tell us a bit about where you're joining us from. We'll ask you a couple of questions as we go through, so please answer the questions. If you've got questions, you can use the Q&A feature on Zoom, or you can just pop them into the chat, and we'll keep an eye on that as we go through the slides today. So yeah, please do say hello and tell us a bit about yourself and your organization as we move through. Next slide. So yeah, just to kick us off with some introductions. As I said, I'm Pumalo. So I am one of the relationship managers. I lead the relationship management team at an organization called Lightful. And I will hold there. I'll tell you a bit more about Lightful shortly and hand over to David to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Dave. I'm programs manager for Candid in the Midwest office in Cleveland. So I'll talk more in just a little bit.
And hello, I'm Teresa. I'm also working for Lightful. I'm doing marketing, and we'll talk more about some interesting things about capacity building today.
Brilliant. Before we dive into, as Teresa mentioned, capacity building and the importance of digital capacity building, I just wanted to give you a bit more of an introduction into Lightful, who we are at Lightful as an organization. So we're a tech company based in the UK, based in London, although we're currently all working from separate offices spread across the UK, obviously brought on by the pandemic. We're all still working from home. So I haven't actually seen my colleague Teresa in what's coming up to a year now. But yeah, we're usually based out of London here in the UK. And what we do as an organization is basically we develop and build digital products and services for nonprofits and beyond profit organizations. There's three main parts of the organization which you can see in front of you, and I'll just touch on them briefly. So the first thing that we do, one of the main products that we've developed as an organization, is the Lightful social platform, which is actually the world's first social media management tool dedicated to nonprofits. So we created it with nonprofits, small to medium-sized nonprofits in mind, and it's built with loads of features that are basically aimed at helping those smaller nonprofits and those medium-sized nonprofits amplify how they use social media to tell their story. We strongly believe at Lightful that charities and nonprofits have compelling and amazing stories to tell. So we developed this social media management tool as a way of helping amplify those stories and showcase the impact that they're able to have. Another part of the business at Lightful, what we do at Lightful is actually called Lightful Labs, which is basically our almost consultancy side of the business, where we work with larger nonprofits and foundations on larger technological digital challenges. So we help them with things like digital transformations. We help them build digital tools that help improve their internal services and help them better deliver the services that they produce. And then the third part of the business, which I will talk to you in more depth as we move through the slides today, is the Bridge program, which is basically our capacity building program that we take small to medium-sized nonprofits across the world through its 12-month program that basically helps smaller charities increase their confidence in using digital and technological tools to amplify their message and raise more funds. And again, I'll talk to you more about Bridge as we move through the slides today, but I just wanted to give you a bit of a brief overview on who we are at Lightful. And we'll make sure to share a link to our website so you can see the various parts of the organization as well. Thank you, Teresa. So brief agenda then, just to give you an idea of what we'll be talking about in today's sessions. So as Teresa mentioned, and I've mentioned, what we're really going to focus on today is, this importance on capacity building, but with a focus on technology and digital and the part that plays in helping nonprofits develop their capacity to, one, amplify their message, but also importantly, raise more funds. So we'll touch on that. We'll look at some of the lessons that we've learned from 2020. 2020 has been a year like no other. It's forced a lot of nonprofits around the world to rely more heavily on digital and technology. So we'll look at some of the key things that we've learned from 2020 and things that we're hoping to take forward into 2021. And then, as promised, I'll give you a brief introduction to the Bridge program. I'll tell you a little bit more about the program itself, what it entails, and importantly, I'll touch on how you can get involved in the Bridge program as well. And as I mentioned at the start, we'll leave some time for questions at the end, but please do feel free to pop your questions into the chat or into the Q&A feature as well as we go through. We'll do our best to try and answer them at the time, but if not, we've got some time for questions at the end. Cool. Does anybody have any questions just before I hand over to Dave? Does that all make sense so far? Someone could just give me a thumbs up. I'll take that. Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you, Morgan. Dave, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Pamulo. Again, I'm Dave Holmes from Candid in our Midwest office. And if you don't know about Candid, just to give you a little bit of a brief background, I think a lot of you might have connected with us before, but if you want to go to the next slide, Teresa. Candid is a partnership that we created, a new organization out of Foundation Center. It's been around for over 60 years, and GuideStar been around for close to 40 now years. We've combined forces to become Candid to collect information on the world of nonprofits and philanthropy. So next slide. We do that mainly because we want to make sure that everybody gets the candid information that they need about running nonprofits, about funding them, and about finding out how to get connected to the funds that you need. So we continue to do that. We continue to work with lots of different organizations. Next slide. And we do research on grant making, on the world of philanthropy. We publish a database called Foundation Directory Online. We also publish the GuideStar database of information to help spread the word about your nonprofit to funders and to other individuals doing research. We basically connect people who want to change the world to the resources that they need to do it. So we do trainings like this all the time, and we also try and make sure that we focus on what's going on in the world of nonprofits. Next slide. Lately, we've been focused a lot on what's going on in the COVID situation and how nonprofits are adjusting, the best ways for them to adjust, the ways that they can find funding for what they need to do. We've also been collecting information on racial equity and putting our racial equity resources page together and expanding it. So if you wanted to know more about funding opportunities, about giving, about ideas for how to make your organization run more effectively during this time, you can find more information at these websites listed here. Next slide. If you want to just make sure that you get the latest information on everything that Candid does, you can sign up for our online newsletter. But what I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about is Candid and Lightful. We began a relationship with Lightful last year, and we've been working to put together programming and to get ready for the Building Resiliency and Digital Growth and Education Engagement program that we're starting in March. And you'll hear lots more about that later today. But if you're interested in some of the other things that we've been doing with Lightful, the previous webinar, Planning Your Digital Strategy for 2021 is available, and you can link to that. I'll put the link in the chat, and I'll also put the link to a blog post that I published related to that webinar and to the Bridge program, so that you can have information related to that too. But I want to turn it back over to Pamulo and Teresa, so they will take you through this program. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dave. And we wanted pretty much to continue the conversation we started on the previous webinar with Candid on the lessons learned from 2020. And you can have a look at the webinar later on at your own pace. It was about thinking how 2020 really transformed our thinking and our work and our communication in general. And what can we really learn from that, and what can we take for 2021? As we all noticed with the pandemic and all the changes that happened quite sudden, really, we realized in 2020 that digital technologies are no longer optional. So we can't really afford to stay behind, and we really have to find a way to communicate with our supporters, our donors, or even with our team. So it was an opportunity all of a sudden to test new approaches, new channels, new ideas, or even new forms of campaigns and how to really engage with our supporters. But of course, we also know, and I saw also from some of your messages already, that it's not really easy to keep up with all the changes or to stay ahead of the curve and trying to understand how digital technologies can really help your organization. So that's then pretty much, I've seen a mention at some point in an article that said that there were 10 years of growth in 10 months. So that was a very interesting way to present pretty much the last year. And the fact that not many of us were actually prepared to go through that transformation, like if we think of 10 years in just 10 months, it was pretty much about trying to keep up. And then after 2020, and as we see that the changes are still happening, how can we really maintain the change? How can we make this a little bit more about the longer term and not just trying to react to all the sudden changes? So then we realized that this starts from internal transformation. It's about the systems, it's about the technology, and how to really make the most of all the new opportunities. It may have been an unfortunate situation trying to deal with all the changes, but how can we bring some good opportunities out of that? And that's pretty much the case with 2021. We really want to get all the lessons from 2020 and try to use them as much as possible in a more strategic way. And that's pretty much when capacity building comes in. And it's probably more important than ever to start thinking of that in your organization. It helps you to think beyond survival. It's not just about reacting to the sudden changes. You want to make sure that you equip your team with the skills and actually the resilience to overcome any challenges that might come, or even being able to adapt to this new normality. And how can you make sure that you're still effective in your organization? So pretty much capacity building can help you be more strategic, get the skills that can really transform your organization, and also embrace the collaboration, find the right tools, the technology, and the channels that can really help you take your organization to the next level. And something that's also very important, and we've noticed that quite a lot in the Bridge program, we don't just talk about the metrics and the performance and the impact. Sometimes we also mention the confidence in your own skills, in the confidence in general to be able to be a little bit better than yesterday or than last year. So when we think of capacity building, it's more about making sure we future-proof our organization for the next steps and whatever comes along. So if we think of capacity building, we could say it's divided in 4 steps. It has to do with the need, the investment, the action, and the impact. So when thinking of the need, it's the first stage. You want to think of the strengths and the weaknesses of your organization. What do you really need? What do we define as capacity building? And what does it really mean for your organization? Then the next stage, it's more about the investment. So how do you really translate the idea of capacity building? What does this mean in terms of staff, of resources, and of course the time that you might need for that? And of course, how can you find those resources, which is always a question. And then you're going through the action. You want to have also the right time, the resources, the skills for the engagement, and making sure that there is a transition. You have the right team to actually help you through the process, and make sure that you actually make the most of it when we're thinking of capacity building. And then, of course, there is the impact. There is a time to actually implement all the changes, all the ideas, all the strategy that you may have started thinking. And it's about the long-term wins, really. We may also see some short-term wins, but you also want to think of the future. You want to feel more confident, and you want to also feel that all the work and the effort that you put in throughout the process, it really works and it really makes your organization more efficient. So this is what we wanted to talk more, and all our learnings really in terms of capacity building and how you can really help your nonprofit in terms of 2021. And this is where we go back again to our own learnings and our bridge program. And my colleague Pamela is going to talk more about that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Teresa. So if we jump to the next slide, so as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to give you a bit more of an introduction into the Bridge program. And as you saw from what Dave mentioned, Bridge is just an acronym that stands for Building Resilience in Digital Growth and Engagement. And Teresa touched on this point. A really important thing that we try and focus on with the Bridge program is not only showing you how you can use digital tools, digital technology to better tell your story and improve the way you communicate, not only with your donors and supporters internally, but it's this resilience aspect. So how can we add longevity to it? How can we develop our strategies so that digital is an integral part of it, and so we're future-proof. So we're not facing a situation like what happened in 2020, where we're all of a sudden panicking and having to almost horseshoe technology and how we use technology into our communication strategies or our fundraising strategies. So that's a huge part of the Bridge program, which I'll touch on in a second. But as an introduction, the Bridge program itself is a 12-month capacity building program that is tailored to nonprofits across the world, across different sectors, focusing on small to medium-sized nonprofits, because we know that they're the ones that, from our experience, tend to struggle when it comes to taking advantage of some of the technological advancements or some of the digital advancements that other commercial organizations are able to take advantage of. So through a series of masterclasses, through a series of webinars, e-learning and digital tools, we work with these small organizations to give them the skills to take advantage of that technology so that they can better communicate with their audiences and better tell their stories. As I mentioned earlier, we often find that as nonprofits, we have such compelling, impactful stories to tell. But what we want to focus on with the Bridge program is how we can reach wider audiences and tell our stories to those audiences, with the end result of hopefully netting more income for our nonprofits. And as you can see from those 3 points at the bottom, the 3 objectives or the 3 main outcomes of the Bridge program tend to focus on fundraising, increasing your confidence in using digital tools or technology to communicate, and then increasing the engagement. So we're not just saying we're going to help you amplify the number of people that you reach, but help you actually have impactful engagements and impactful connections with that wider audience. And if we jump to the next slide, so what does that actually look like? So what does that look like over a 12-month period? So the Bridge program broken down, we like to break it down into these 3 areas, and we actually call them our 3 pillars of the program. So through the program, through some of the things that I've already mentioned, through online courses, through live masterclasses and webinars, will help you unpick and develop the skills to actually better use technology to communicate with your supporters through tools that we'll provide. So I mentioned the Lightful social platform. We've also got a learning system, an online learning system that allows you to access a wide curriculum of courses. And through those tools will actually help you then implement some of the learnings that you'll be able to take on through some of those master classes. And then what ties it together really nicely, and what I think separates the Bridge program from other digital capacity building programs, is that 3rd pillar, or that 3rd item on your screen, is the support. So a big part of what we do at Lightful, although we're a company that promotes the use of technology. We understand that, that human touch is really, really important when it comes to the organizations that we work with. So throughout the 12-month program, participants have access to a dedicated team of relationship managers that will give them one-to-one support and help them overcome some of their specific challenges that they're facing when it comes to using technology and digital to build their communication and fundraising strategies. So I wanted to unpick some of those 3 pillars in a bit more detail, just so it gives you a bit more of an understanding of what organizations can expect when they take part in the Bridge program. So if we jump to the next slide, Teresa, thank you. So the first thing under that comes in under that tools pillar. So a big part of the program is, as I mentioned, the skills, tools, and that support. So what we're saying is, with the different learning methods through the master classes, through the online learning that you can take part in, we're giving you the skills and the knowledge, and then also the tools in which to implement those learnings. So a big part of what fits under that tool column is the Lightful social platform, which I mentioned earlier. So as part of the Bridge program, you get free access to our award-winning social media manager, which is basically built to help you schedule, plan, and strategize your social media marketing and your social media campaigns. It allows you to save time through its capability to connect with multiple social media platforms. You can actually schedule posts to go out simultaneously through multiple social media platforms. Again, we know a lot of the nonprofits that we work with tend to have small teams, people working in multiple disciplines. So a huge, something that we've tried to develop is the ability to help them save time by planning and scheduling. And that's a big feature on the social media platform. Through another feature called the Story Builder on the social media platform, sorry, if you just jump back, another feature on the social media platform that we've got is the Story Builder, which again helps you tell some of those impactful stories so that you can have deeper, meaningful engagements with your audience. And lastly, we've got some detailed analytics so you can better understand the impact of your communications with your audiences. And then just jumping forward to the next slide. So if we jump forward to the next slide, Teresa. There we go. And so another tool that you'll have access to, organizations taking part in the Bridge program have access to, is something that I've mentioned already, is our online learning portal, Lightful Learning, which is basically where we house our e-learning curriculum. So as part of the Bridge program, you'll have access to a pretty comprehensive curriculum and syllabus. So it's a mixture of live sessions, live masterclasses, and on-demand e-learning that you can go away and access in your own time. So going back to something that I've previously mentioned, we understand that a lot of the organizations that we work with are short for time. So what we've done is created this online learning platform that allows you to take these courses in your own time. So we've got quite a lengthy syllabus that covers everything from the basics of creating your digital strategy, creating a social media strategy, right through to the more detailed stuff of how you plan a Google Ads campaign, how you plan a paid social campaign, how you actually go about analyzing that and implementing the recommendations from your analysis. So you, as part of the Bridge program, you have access to this suite of online courses through our learning portal, Lightful Learning. It's also got a great space for the competitive ones amongst us. So you can see how you're doing in all the various courses against other participants in the program. You can communicate with other participants. So something that we always try and promote is this idea of peer learning. So you can actually learn from organizations that are facing some of the same challenges that you're facing as well. And then going on to the next slide. So next, I wanted to talk to you about or just dive into a bit more detail about the syllabus that I've just mentioned. And this kind of fits under that skills and knowledge column. So I've mentioned we've put together a really comprehensive curriculum syllabus that spans the 12-month period. To make it a little bit more digestible, we've broken it down into 4 key modules. And as I mentioned, it's a mixture of live sessions, which participants attend in person. The huge benefit of attending those live sessions in person is, the opportunity to ask questions, the only opportunity to meet some of the other participants in the program. We've got a suite of experts when it comes to using technology from a non-profits perspective. So we've got a suite of expert hosts that will be leading some of our master classes and some of those live sessions. So attending them in person is such a great opportunity to actually ask questions and get those detailed pieces of feedback that you won't perhaps get with some of the online learning. But yeah, it's a mixture of online learning and those live sessions that span these 4 modules. So we start with the fundamentals, looking at the basics of actually develop what your website should look like, social media best practices, understanding your audience. We then move into storytelling, so how we can use digital, how we can use technology to better tell our story, and how we can put together content that you already have, but how you can better present that to your audiences so it has more impact. We'll then move on to look at fundraising, how you can use different digital tools, different digital services to better fundraise, and before focusing on understanding impact and insights. So really focusing on ROI, a return of investment, so you can better understand what you're putting into digital and what you're getting out of it, so you can go have those conversations with board members and more senior staff. So that's just a taste of the syllabus as part of the Bridge program. And if we jump over to the next slide, covering this last pillar, or what I think is actually my favorite one, it's probably the one I think is quite important, is that support pillar. So I mentioned earlier, as part of the Bridge program, you get access to our relationship management team, who all have various experience within the nonprofit sector, within digital marketing, social media marketing. So you get one-to-one support, you get a series of one-to-one sessions throughout the program, throughout the 12-month program, where you can dive in a little bit deeper into some of those specific challenges to you. So a really important session at the start of the program, where organizations taking part will go through an onboarding session. We'll talk to you about the different tools available to you as part of the program. We'll talk to you about the calendar, what that looks like, set up your next one-to-one, set up some objectives, understand what your what participants in the Bridge program are hoping to actually get out of the program, and really help set up for the 12-month period, and then regular check-ins just to help with some of those challenges. Something that a lot of the organizations have really benefited from is these one-to-one sessions, using them as opportunities to just bounce ideas off members of our team. As I said, using their experience to get feedback, whether it's, looking at fundraising campaigns that you're coming up with, looking at content reviews. We find that organizations tend to find they're really, really useful to get that expert and that external insight into something that they're working on. Excellent. And just to focus on those key outcomes of the Bridge program. So as I mentioned, we've had a lot of success with the program over the last few years that it's been running. 44% of the organizations that took part in last year's program saw an increase in their fundraising, 25% increase in confidence using digital. And that's a really important one, because when it comes to, as I say, the target audience, or the organizations that we tend to work with as part of the Bridge program, tend to be those smaller to medium-sized organizations, usually lacking confidence. And it's not usually through a lack of skill and desire. It's usually just the intimidation of, digital. What does technology bring? These complications. So really helping unpick that. We find really helping diving into, the different strategy requirements of the different organizations, and has had a huge impact in the confidence of the organizations to take part in the program. And then importantly, as I mentioned at the start, what we're not saying with the Bridge program is that, we're just going to help you increase your audience and grow your audiences, which is something that we do. But what we really want to see is that increased engagement, because that again leads to, that increase in fundraising. And next slide, Teresa. So just touching on, again, some of the findings that we've had from some previous participants in the program. So as you say, 57% of all respondents within the program have seen, we're really confident after taking part in the Bridge program, increase their confidence in those digital skills. We know, again, that, as I mentioned, the lack of strategy, or the lack of, or the intimidation of looking at the digital space, or the technology space, not understanding what you should be using, how you should be using it. We know that impacts confidence. So what we try and do is help unpick that and help you put a strategy together to make sure that you're using all the relevant tools, all the right technology to help you amplify that message. And that last stat, 37% of charities were most interested in improving their fundraising strategy. We know that fundraising is a huge thing when it comes to nonprofits, and is increasing. Last year, we saw a lot of organizations have to divert the way that they fundraised. They had to move that online. So a big part of what we do with the Bridge program is help you, or participants in the program, understand how they can use technology and digital to better fundraise. Excellent. And next slide, Teresa. And again, just some excellent feedback that we've had from previous participants over the last couple of years that we've been running the program. I won't read all of these out to you. We'll make sure we share the slides. But yeah, we just wanted to sort of share and give a bit more of an introduction into, what some of the key outcomes are of the program and how it can help nonprofits when it comes to digital capacity building. If we jump to the next slide, the important question. So how can you get involved? So how do nonprofits get involved? As the program is open to, if we jump to the next slide, the program is open to all nonprofits. We'll share a link to a registration form. If you want more information, or if you like what you've heard and you'd like to actually register for our next Bridge program, which is starting on the 1st of March. And something I actually haven't mentioned, which is all important, is that the program itself is actually free, through a partnership that Candid and Lightful have. It's actually free. So please do register your interest. All you have to do is fill in the short questionnaire, which will help us understand a bit more about your organizations, a bit more about what some of the challenges you're facing are, and help us unpick whether or not you're right for the Bridge program. But it's really easy to register. We've got, as I said, the free program starting on the 1st of March. And so please do, if you're interested, or if you would like more information on the Bridge program itself, do get in touch with us, and we'll be more than happy to share some more insights and some more information on the program. But
just to jump in about that real quickly here, we are so happy to be able to partner with Lightful to offer this as a free program, free year-long program for you. So make sure that you take a look at the link. It takes about 2 minutes to fill it out if you wanted to fill out the application. It's a very simple thing. And as Pumulo mentioned, it is completely free. We had support provided for this by Fidelity Charitable Trustees Initiative, and so we're happy to be able to offer it to you for free. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dave. And that's sort of all I had in terms of an intro. Teresa, do you want to jump to the next slide? Excellent. So we've moved swiftly on into sort of our quick Q&A section. I know we've shared a lot of information with you. Apologies if we've bombarded you. I know it's a lot to take on, but if you had any questions, please feel free to pop them into the chat or use the Q&A function, and we'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions, whether it's about capacity building in general, whether it's about some of the learnings from 2020 or specifically about the Bridge program itself.
And I'm just placing my email address in the chat as well, because you can certainly reach out if you want to share this with somebody else in your office. You'll be getting a recording of this and the slides, so it'd be really good to be able to spread the word about this to everyone who might be interested in being a part of it. And we're looking to promote this heavily, the Bridge program, in the end of this month and the beginning of the month in February. We're anticipating a lot of interest, and you guys are kind of getting the first exposure to the promotion of this. We have a question here for Teresa and Pumulo.
So Laurie is asking, what do you see as the difference between 2020 and 2021 for capacity building? It's a really good question. I feel the main difference from what we've seen, at least, is that there is an increased interest really on digital capacity building, because we see more organizations who understand that they're still behind in terms of technology, or they understand that it's really important now to try to keep up as much as possible. So I think the increasing demand is also creating new opportunities, and it could create also more competition. So for example, as we said, the fact that you are among the first one that we're talking about the Bridge program, and we're actually expecting many registrations. It feels like there is an opportunity to try to make the most of it. And the fact that it's free, of course, it's a great opportunity to upskill yourself and try to keep up with all the changes in terms of fundraising, marketing, comms, and think of the future. It's not just about the next month. It's trying to make more resilient your organization, really.
Yeah, just to echo what you've said, Teresa. I think that's a really important point. And I think just to add, I think something that we've seen an increase of with some of the organizations that we're working with. As I mentioned, a lot of organizations have been very swift to take on digital and kind of shoehorn it into their wider strategies. So I think it's now just better understanding of how to use that digital. They've had sort of their first go of using technology as part of their communication strategies or their marketing strategies, but now it's, I think a big difference that we'll see is more refined strategies when it comes to using digital. Now there's a bit more of an understanding of the capabilities and the information that you can get and the reach that you can get with using technology. So that's something that I see might be a big difference in 2021.
Seems like in 2021, more organizations that I've been talking to are, everybody in 2020 was kind of blindsided by the need to get access to technology quickly and to be ramped up in terms of how to build their capacity. This year, I think people are prepared that it's going to be a little bit more of the same, at least until the middle of the year, possibly throughout an entire 2021. And people need to make sure that their technology level is as high as possible, so that they have the flexibility they need to deliver their programs. All right, looks like we put the Bridge link back into the chat for anyone who did not pick that up before. Any other questions from anybody, any of the attendees?
Oh, there's a question in the chat, in the Q&A that I've just seen from Sandra. Small to medium-sized NPOs tend to have small technology budgets. Do you think the foundations would be providing more grants toward use for technology?
I think I could probably field that one in terms of what we see for the future, particularly when it comes to the technology that's necessary to change the way you're delivering your programs due to COVID, due to your own limitations within your organization. We've seen more foundations step up and say we're making grants available that will cover the sort of bridge between, not the bridge program, but the bridge between where you are and where you need to be when it comes to technology. So I have seen, I would say, more foundations say or put in their guidelines for COVID funding that as long as it's directly related to what you need to do to increase your capacity, the more likely you'll get grants. It's different from foundation to foundation, but the trend is definitely there.
Yeah. And again, just to echo that, I think something that we've seen is not just service delivery, but also helping grantees and organizations and the small to medium-sized organizations actually become a little bit more self-sufficient in terms of fundraising. So if they can use technology as a way of increasing their fundraising, we've seen that have and actually showcase that back to the foundations that are providing these grants. We've seen that kind of increasing as well towards the end of last year.
There's a really good comment from Gabriel saying the difficulty also is convincing your organization into jumping into virtual and remote tech. Organization with 20 years of immigration experience yet didn't have a proper website until it built it in April within a week. So there are in a if it ain't broke, don't fix it approach. Just the idea of submitting for a grant was not even in their focus until I came on board. I think it's exactly the case of what we discussed on how the pandemic and all the changes really got you thinking, how can I be a little bit more online in terms of my website, my channels, my presence? And of course, you have to rush pretty much years that you weren't really make most of it. So it is the reminder again, as we're saying, and I guess there's always a case with someone like Gabriel jumping on board, trying to help as much as possible, but of course you want as much support as you can. There's definitely a lot of convincing, I guess, still with many organizations.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. We've actually just been working with a number of organizations that took part in the Bridge program last year who were very small, sort of community-based organizations that have been around for hundreds of years. Actually, the combining the thing that combined all those organizations that took part in that Bridge program was that they were quite established charities, but still very small and sound quite similar to what you've mentioned, Gabriel. And we find a big part of helping tell that story or helping convince the organization itself is being able to show bit by bit, show the impact and the increased use of technology and the increased reliance of technology has. So something I mentioned earlier that we focus on with the Bridge program is helping you kind of unpick that story, helping you understand the ROI, return of investment, when it comes to using different technologies, different digital tools, so that you can really, showcase that to the rest of the organization and say, look, we've put a strategy behind our social media posting, our social media campaigning. Here's exactly how much our audience has grown, and this is how much we've been able to increase our funds. So it's being able to tell that story and being able to present that in a way that's digestible to the rest of your organization. Usually that tends to be fundraising figures that we often find. I hope that makes sense, Gabriel.
think that's, looks like all the questions for right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that, Gabriel. Brilliant. Thank you all again for joining us. I hope it's been informative. I hope you've been able to take away some learnings. And again, if you want more information on the Bridge program itself or what we do at Lightful, or more general information about capacity building, please don't hesitate to get in touch. We'll make sure we get in touch with everybody individually and share the link to the slides and a recording as well. So yeah, feel free to share that with your colleagues and people within your networks. Just to leave, I guess, in saying that we've got, as Teresa mentioned, we've got some places still for the program that's starting on the 1st of March. So please do register if you are interested, because they tend to fill up quite quickly. And yeah, it's a free program for the next 12 months to help you increase your fundraising capability. So please do register if you're interested. Brilliant.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And also thank
Thanks
you,
for
David,
joining.
for joining today.
Thank you
It was
so
a
much.
pleasure. Thank you very much.
Talk to you again.
See you all.
Thanks. Bye all.
Wow.